You think anxiety is something you feel. Stress, fear, panic, fine. But why does your breathing break first? Why does your chest tighten before you decide you are afraid? Why does your throat feel narrower before you can explain what is happening? Why do you start watching your breath like it is a machine that just started failing? Most people do not ask. They say stress response. They say anxiety. But that is not an answer, because those words do not explain the sequence. They do not explain why the breathing sensation arrives first and the story arrives second. When you really ask why, you find something that changes how you see your own body. Not as something that reacts to emotion, but as the thing generating it. Let me show you. Start with something simple. Right now, take a breath, not a performance, just a normal one. In and out. Now imagine this exact moment. You inhale, your chest expands, air moves in, but the breath does not land, the relief never arrives. So you inhale again, deeper, harder, sharper, and somehow that makes it worse. Your ribs feel stiff, your upper chest grips, your throat tightens in a way you cannot measure with your fingers, but you can feel anyway. Breathing stops being automatic and becomes something you have to manage. Then your mind does what it always does. It starts scanning. What is wrong? Why can I not breathe? Is something happening to me? Stop. Look at the order, because this is the first fact that matters. The breathing sensation comes first, the explanation comes later. That is not poetry, that is physiology. And it already hints at the answer. Breathing is upstream. It is not the symptom, it is one of the first outputs of threat mode. Now, an experiment, take one normal breath in, then, without exhaling, take a second inhale on top of it, just a small extra pull. That stacked inhale, notice what it is chasing, not oxygen, not air, a sensation. The sensation of a breath that finally feels complete. And sometimes it never completes. You can keep pulling air in and still feel unsatisfied. You can keep performing the motion of breathing and still feel empty. But wait, if this is anxiety, why can you provoke the same craving with nothing but breathing? No threat, no story, just air moving in and out. That should bother you, because it means the sensation can be generated by the system itself. That sensation has a name. It is not fear, it is air hunger. Air hunger is one of the most powerful signals your body can produce. Not because it is dramatic, because it hijacks attention. It forces monitoring. It forces measurement. It forces repetition. You do not just breathe, you start checking whether breathing feels correct. Now, here is the paradox that makes the whole thing strange. When people feel like they cannot breathe during anxiety, they are usually breathing more, not less. At rest, a typical person breathes roughly 12 to 18 times per minute. Under threat mode, that can climb to 20, 25, 30 breaths per minute or more. So the question is not, why do I stop breathing? The question is, why do you feel like you are suffocating while you are over-breathing? Why does more air create the feeling of less air? To answer that, you have to rebuild what breathing is actually for, because most people were taught the wrong target. They were taught oxygen. Oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide goes out. You need oxygen to live, so your body forces you to breathe. It sounds right, it is not the main control knob. Your breathing is not driven moment to moment by oxygen, it is driven by carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the tight leash, because carbon dioxide is not an idea. Carbon dioxide is monitored by sensors, literal sensors. You have detectors designed for one job: measure the chemistry of the blood and decide how hard breathing should feel. Some of those sensors sit in the arteries feeding your brain. They sample the blood that will become your brain's environment in seconds. Others sit deeper. They measure the chemistry of the fluid around the brain itself. Not thoughts, not emotions, chemistry. And the reason carbon dioxide matters is simple. Carbon dioxide does not stay as carbon dioxide. It turns into carbonic acid. Carbonic acid breaks apart, hydrogen ions rise. The body does not feel carbon dioxide, it feels the acidity shift created by carbon dioxide, which means breathing drive is not based on mood, it is based on acidity. That should change how you picture the sensation. Because when air hunger appears, it is not your mind searching for drama, it is your brainstem receiving a chemical message and converting it into urgency. And urgency has only one language: pressure, need, now. That is why air hunger does not feel like a gentle notification. It feels like a command. Your body can tolerate being cold, it can tolerate being hungry, it can tolerate pain for a while, but it does not tolerate a breathing error. Because your breathing system is an emergency system that runs all day because you are an oxygen-burning machine that produces carbon dioxide constantly. Every cell produces it, every moment, which means your body is always balancing on a narrow chemical range, and breathing is the lever that keeps you inside it. You are not breathing for comfort. You are breathing to keep the chemistry stable. And when that stability even slightly shifts, the drive rises fast. Not metaphor fast, control system fast. The kind of fast that reaches the chest before language reaches your mind. And there is an actual route for that message. The chemical sensors do not just float in the body like ghosts, they send signals up nerves, they feed into the lowest levels of the brain, the parts that run breathing even when you are unconscious. That signal enters a region that functions like a central control desk. It listens to the blood, it listens to the lungs, it listens to the chest wall, and then it decides how urgent breathing should feel, not how urgent breathing should sound in a sentence, how urgent it should feel in the body. Then the command goes out to the diaphragm, to the muscles between the ribs, to the muscles in the neck. And if the chemistry says you are drifting, the command does not whisper. It escalates because the breathing system has to solve a problem that never stops. Your brain uses oxygen every second, it produces carbon dioxide every second, so the system never rests, it only corrects. That is why the sequence matters. Breath sensation first, story second. Now, there is a typical target level your sensors aim for. A typical set point for carbon dioxide in arterial blood is around 40 millimeters of mercury. You do not need to memorize the number. You just need to feel what it implies. It implies that breathing is regulated like temperature, not like a light switch. A narrow range, constant correction. Small changes trigger correction fast. And it implies something more unsettling. The sensation you call "I cannot breathe" is often not oxygen starvation. It is the brain reacting to carbon dioxide balance. Now notice what that means. If carbon dioxide is the control target, then this sensation can appear even while oxygen is fine, because carbon dioxide can shift quickly, because carbon dioxide can shift simply because breathing pattern changed. That is why the experience feels confusing. People expect oxygen logic. No oxygen means panic. More oxygen means relief. But the system is not built on that logic. It is built on carbon dioxide, which means you can breathe harder and still trigger urgency. You can pull in more air and still feel like it did nothing. You can take a deep breath and feel worse. Not because the body is irrational, because you are chasing the wrong variable. Now ask the next question. If carbon dioxide is the lever, why does it feel like your lungs are the problem? Why do you feel tightness in the chest? Why do you feel narrowing in the throat? Why do you feel stuck? Because the sensation is not just chemistry, it is chemistry plus mechanics. Breathing is not a number in your blood. Breathing is muscle. Breathing is rhythm. Breathing is posture. Breathing is effort. And the body uses effort as information. When effort rises, the brain treats it as a problem, because effort is one of the oldest danger signals there is. Effort means something is resisting. So when the system pushes breathing harder, and the mechanical feeling of breathing does not satisfy it. Air hunger appears. Air hunger is a mismatch. Drive goes up. Satisfaction does not arrive. That is the core, because your breathing system is not built to measure air. It measures completion. It measures whether the breath closed the loop. There are stretch sensors in the lungs and chest wall that report movement. There are pressure signals, there are rhythm generators that set cadence automatically, and all of that gets compared against the chemical demand. Think of it like a thermostat with two inputs. One input is chemical. Carbon dioxide is rising, drive up. The other input is mechanical, breath delivered, drive down. Air hunger happens when those two disagree. When chemistry says more, but mechanics fail to silence it. That is why you can inhale and still feel unfinished. The lungs can move and the demand can remain. It is not a lack of air, it is a failure of closure. And that failure produces a very specific pattern of behavior. Stacked inhales, sighs, yawns, the searching breath. These are not coping behaviors. They are the control system attempting to force closure. That is why it feels compulsive, because it is not an opinion, it is a motor program, and once it starts, it becomes self-reinforcing. Because breathing is special, most automatic systems are sealed off. You cannot manually adjust your heartbeat second to second. You cannot consciously dial your blood pressure. But breathing is one of the only automatic systems that also accepts manual interference. You can grab the steering wheel, which creates a strange conflict. The brainstem is generating the demand, while the cortex is attempting to control the movement. Two layers of the nervous system pulling on the same muscle rhythm. That is why breathing can feel mechanical during threat, because it becomes split, part reflex, part supervision. And supervision changes sensation. The moment breathing becomes supervised, it becomes louder in awareness. Not louder in the room, louder in the brain. Because attention is a gain knob. Whatever it watches becomes amplified. And breathing is the easiest target for that amplification. You cannot stop hearing it once you start listening. Now connect that to the map inside the brain. Because air hunger does not exist in your lungs. It exists in your nervous system. The lungs send data, the blood sends chemistry, but the sensation is assembled centrally. Deep in the brain, below language, there are circuits that generate the breathing rhythm automatically. They set the tempo like a metronome. They also decide when the rhythm has to be forced. When chemistry drifts, those circuits increase drive. When the lungs stretch, those circuits quiet down. When both agree, breathing feels invisible. But when they disagree, the rhythm changes. The metronome becomes a drill. And then another layer turns it into awareness. There is a system in the brain that builds a running model of the inside of your body. Not what you see, what you are. Heartbeat, warmth, pressure, breathing effort. It takes those signals and turns them into a single thing you can recognize, a state. This is interoception, the sensing of internal body signals. When interoception is quiet, you feel normal, not happy, not sad, just normal. When interoception flares, you do not get a sentence, you get a sensation, a wave, a pressure, a wrongness. Air hunger is one of the strongest interoceptive signals the brain can generate. So when it lights up, it does not wait for permission, it fills the entire field of awareness. Now, the biggest mistake people make becomes obvious. They think the sensation is a message about the outside world, but it is a message about internal control, a demand signal, a correction signal, and the mind arrives after the signal. Now, we need to explain what raises drive in the first place, because the biggest mistake people make is thinking anxiety starts in the mind. In reality, threat mode starts in the body, not with a thought, with a shift, a mode change, a configuration. Threat mode does one primary thing. It prepares you to act, not to reflect, not to analyze, to act. Run, fight, freeze, brace. And to do that, the body flips into sympathetic activation, heart rate rises, blood gets redirected, muscle tone increases, and breathing changes shape. Not slowly, immediately. In calm conditions, breathing tends to be driven low in the body, the diaphragm does most of the work, the lower ribs expand, the breath is efficient and quiet. Threat mode does not want quiet, threat mode wants speed. So breathing shifts upward into the upper chest, into the muscles between the ribs, into the neck and shoulders. That shift is not a personality trait, it is muscle recruitment. You are borrowing extra muscles to pull air in faster, your chest wall becomes more active, your shoulders may rise slightly, your ribs may lift, and now breathing begins to feel like work. Because those muscles are not designed for effortless breathing all day, they are designed for bursts, for action, for readiness. Now add the second piece people never think about. Not all the air you inhale reaches the deepest parts of the lungs where gas exchange is most effective. Some air stays in the airways. It moves in and out without exchanging much gas. Fast, shallow breaths waste more air. So in threat mode, you can be moving a lot of air while feeling like you are not getting the payoff. Effort goes up, payoff goes down. That combination is perfect for generating air hunger because the body's demanding more and the breath does not feel like it delivered it. Now bring in the throat. Threat mode recruits the airway. Muscles around the voice box tense. Breathing becomes louder. Effort becomes a signal. The throat sensation is especially persuasive because the throat is not just a tube, it is a gate. It is guarded by reflexes designed to prevent choking, swallowing wrong, or inhaling danger, which means the top of your airway is wired like a security system. Sensitive, fast, overprotective by design, and threat mode changes how that gate behaves. The muscles around the voice box do not just shape breathing, they shape sound, they prepare vocal output. In threat states, the body is preparing for actions that involve the airway. Gasping, calling out, bracing, clenching, explosive exhales, even when you never make a sound. So the airway becomes part of the posture. Chest lifts, neck stiffens, jaw sets, the tongue subtly changes position, and the brain reads that as friction, narrowing, resistance, not because the airway is truly sealed shut, but because the effort signature changed. The brain does not need total blockage to generate alarm. It only needs a pattern that resembles one. That is the evolutionary logic. If your airway is threatened, you do not wait for certainty, you escalate early. And that escalation is what makes the sensation feel existential. Because once the throat becomes part of the loop, every breath carries a test sensation. Not comfort, clearance. Is the path open? Did it move smoothly? Did it sound wrong? Did it feel scratchy? And again, attention amplifies it. Once you start sampling the airway, you detect micro changes that were always there. Dryness, vibration, heat, mucus movement. Normal signals become interpreted as evidence, and evidence drives arousal, which tightens posture, which tightens airway, muscle tone, which increases effort. That is how the throat becomes the perfect amplifier. Not because it is the source, because it is the most convincing place for threat to feel real. Now the next question becomes unavoidable. If threat mode changes breathing like this, then why does it sometimes spiral? Why does it become self-sustaining? Here is the mechanism. When air hunger appears, attention locks onto breathing. Breathing becomes the center of the prediction system. You start waiting for the next inhale. You start judging whether it worked. You start searching for the breath that finally feels complete. And breathing is one of the few systems you can influence directly while it is running. You can hold your breath on purpose, you can sigh on purpose, you can pull a deeper inhale on purpose, but the drive is generated below awareness. The demand is not asking you what you prefer, so you can interfere with the movement without resolving the demand. You can force the motion of breathing and still feel urgency, but wait. If more breathing is supposed to solve the problem, why does taking more air often intensify it? Here's the answer: because overbreathing drives carbon dioxide down. If you breathe faster than your metabolism requires, you blow off carbon dioxide faster than you produce it. Carbon dioxide drops, and carbon dioxide is the tight leash. So you can create a carbon dioxide error state while trying to escape discomfort. This is why the experience can feel like suffocation. Not because oxygen is missing, because carbon dioxide moved, the chemistry shifted. Sustained rapid breathing can shift carbon dioxide noticeably in under a minute. When carbon dioxide drops, blood becomes slightly more alkaline, and that affects the nervous system. Neurons become more excitable, the system becomes twitchy, blood vessels in the brain can constrict, and then sensations appear. Lightheadedness, tingling in the fingers, pins and needles around the mouth, a floating sensation, a vibration under the skin, a tightening in the chest, a sense that you must yawn, sigh, or pull a deeper breath to correct something. Those sensations are outputs. They are not metaphors. They are body state. And they have timing. They can rise quickly. They can intensify quickly because they are a control system adjusting to changing chemistry. Now we are ready for the full loop. Say it once, cleanly, and only once. Threat mode increases arousal, breathing shifts upward and faster, air hunger appears, attention locks onto breathing, you inhale harder, carbon dioxide drops, sensations intensify, then you inhale again, harder. And here's the detail that makes the experience feel personal. When you take a deep breath on purpose, you change two things at once. You change the chemistry and you change the mechanics. Mechanically, a deep inhale stretches the lungs and the chest wall. Those stretch signals normally tell the breathing rhythm, enough. They quiet the drive. But chemically, a deep inhale can also accelerate carbon dioxide loss. If the breathing was already fast, the deeper breath can drop carbon dioxide even further, so the system receives mixed information. Stretch says, we are full. Chemistry says the balance just shifted. One signal tries to shut the loop, the other signal keeps the loop open. That conflict can feel like a jam. Not a lack of air, a lack of resolution. It is the reason people describe it as, I cannot get a satisfying breath, instead of, I cannot pull air in. Because you can pull air in, what you cannot pull in is completion. And once that conflict starts, the brain does what brains do. It prioritizes the worst interpretation. If there is a chance the airway is compromised, it treats effort as threat. If there is a chance the chemistry is drifting, it treats urgency as non-negotiable. So the motor program keeps searching. Another inhale, another stacked inhale, another sigh, not to express emotion, to force closure in a system that currently refuses to close. This is also why the sensation can migrate. One moment it is chest pressure, next it is throat friction, next it is a hollow feeling behind the sternum. The drive is the same. The nervous system is just sampling different parts of the breathing apparatus, looking for the point where the loop will finally shut. That is the machine. It does not need a narrative to run. It generates its own urgency. And now your mind enters the room. Not first, last. Because the mind arrives after the signal, it receives the bodily output and generates a label. What is this? What does it mean? What should I do? And the label it produces is not random, because the brain is biased towards survival. If signals look like threat, it generates threat. If the body feels wrong, it assumes danger. Breathing discomfort is one of the highest priority signals you can have. It captures attention automatically. It forces monitoring. So the brain searches for meaning, even when the sequence is mechanical. That is where anxiety appears. Not as a cause, as a label, a name assigned to a body state the system already created. Now we can answer the title question without mystical language. Why does anxiety make it hard to breathe? Anxiety does not make it hard to breathe. Threat mode shifts breathing drive and breathing mechanics. and the brain labels the output anxiety. That is the inversion. People expect, I feel anxious, so I cannot breathe. The sequence is often breathing drive shifts, pattern changes, carbon dioxide shifts, sensations intensify, label appears. Now, proof, not motivation, not metaphor, proof. If this model is true, it should show up in timing and measurement. So we use the one thing the brain cannot fake, timing. Proof one is reflex timing, startle reflex, a loud sound, a sudden movement. Before language forms, the body reacts. Shoulders jump, eyes widen, jaw tightens, breath catches. That breath catches fast. On the scale of a couple hundred milliseconds, 200 milliseconds is not enough time for explanation. It is barely enough time for awareness. And yet the body already moved. Breathing changed before you could choose meaning. That is proof one. The body fires first, awareness follows. Proof two is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a lever. If you increase carbon dioxide in inhaled air, the drive to breathe rises sharply. If you push carbon dioxide down through sustained rapid breathing, sensations appear even in the absence of external threat. Air hunger can be produced by changes in carbon dioxide drive even when oxygen is stable. That is not philosophy. That is chemistry. And it is reliable enough that laboratories can use carbon dioxide shifts to probe the breathing drive and panic-like states because the system is built on carbon dioxide sensitivity. Now take those two proofs and line them up. Timing comes first, chemistry comes next, awareness comes last. And that order is the whole point, because people treat anxiety like a thought that invades their life. But what you call anxiety is often the name you give to a body configuration, a threat configuration, a mechanical sequence. Breathing is not downstream of the emotion, breathing is upstream of it. Now, bring everything into one clean reframe. Here it is. You do not feel anxious and then struggle to breathe. Breathing drive shifts. Breathing mechanics shift. Carbon dioxide shifts. The system generates air hunger, and the brain labels the state. Emotion is not something you feel first. Emotion is something your body does first. And the final fact is the one that most people do not like. This happens before you can stop it. You cannot argue with sensors that detect acidity in your blood. You cannot negotiate with a brainstem circuit whose job is survival. You cannot outthink a reflex that begins below thought. The body runs programs, fast programs, old programs, and awareness comes last, not comfort, truth.